I came here to heal, I came here to grow. Lesson in love, they helped me let go. I chose this path, I chose this time. Everything I need, I hold inside. I came here to heal, I came here to grow. Lesson in love, they helped me let go. I chose this path, I chose this time. Everything I need, I hold inside. Welcome and welcome back to another episode of Rebuilding Me, the Art of Starting Again, with me, Tisha Michelle, your host. So, have you ever woke up and just felt like, I just need to start again? Not escape, not erase, however, begin fresh, fresh from truth, like from peace, from that center. Well, if not, that was me one day. I remember I picked up my phone and I text someone close to me and I said, "Today is not it. I just need a do over." And then I like tossed the phone and then started going around the house and just washing dishes and watering the plants, doing all of that. So when I finally made my way back to my phone, I once I seen the response was like a do-over question mark, and I was like, I can only imagine how this actually sounded to that person. And then I just tossed the phone, so I didn't have access to it. So I responded back and I was like, no, 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 not like that. I just mean a reset, like a do-over. And then I thought about it afterwards, like, what does that actually mean to me? And then it hit me. It was like, I'm not craving like a new life, you know, uh, but more like a divine refresh. So, and this whole like analogy or whatever example popped in my head. And, it made me think about our cell phones, right? Like when you upgrade your cell phone and you're going to trade that in, whether you're going to get credit for it or maybe you still owed on it or whatever the case may be, or you're going to give it away because you got to do one, whatever it is, they always say make sure you reset it back to the factory settings. Why? Because it's full. What we going to do with that? Right? It's full of pictures, the pictures that hold like joy and happiness, but also pain, full of notes. And those notes might have ideas that you never finished, promises you didn't keep to yourself, or maybe it's full of a bunch of apps that you thought that you needed and emails pulling your attention in like hundreds or maybe thousands of different directions. Before that phone can move forward, it has to be cleared back to how it was designed: simple, powerful, and ready. And that's how I felt. So I didn't want to like start my life, air quotes, over. I wanted to start it again, to get back to the original settings of my soul, like before the heartbreak, before betrayal, before the loss, before, financial difficulty, before fear, before I started second guessing what God already put inside of me. So it's like, being in that in between space, the one where you're too spiritually awake to go back to who you used to be while you're still trying to, figure out how to move forward with everything that you've learned. That space is hard. That space is messy. That space can be a bitch, because awareness doesn't always come with instructions. So, like, once your eyes are open, you can't unsee it. And then you also can't yet step fully into the new because your old patterns don't fit and your new little rhythm hasn't even stabilized yet. And that's that in between. That in between is sacred ground. Takes a minute to really get there. But I'm telling you guys now, if you're feeling like that, it is sacred. Um, and it's also uncomfortable. It's like standing in the hallway between what was and what's becoming. And God's like whispering, stay right there. I got you. I'm recalibrating you. But the whole time you're like, WTF, capital letters. So I think back to 2014 when I built my first business, which was a PCA school that turned into a full blown home care agency. And back then I didn't know a quarter of what I know now. And this is all before, like, my best friend passed. So there was no talk of a nervous system regulation. There was no talk of healing the money wound, no understanding of generational patterns or divine flow or mysticism. All I knew was work hard, serve people, and trust your instincts. And it worked. The revenue was flowing at anywhere from like 60 to $70,000, flowing through every month. I didn't have the language of alignment, but I did have momentum. And even though I didn't know what I was doing, God still blessed it. And when I look back, I realized I was building purely on faith. I mean, you could say hustle, fire. I wasn't overthinking anything. I wasn't dissecting every move. I just did it. I just moved. Like I was aware of something and boom, okay, what's the solution? And that was always like my motto, like don't focus on the problem, focus on the solution. That's it. Because you focus on the problem, what you're going to keep getting more and more of the problem. So I seen that I was paying this money to the nurse and RN to teach these classes, which is great. The regulation said it needed to be an RN, even though it wasn't anything medical, but that's a whole other story. And I was like, well, what can I do? What can I do and pay myself? And CPR and first aid came in. It dropped in. So I started Googling that and I found the place. They were coming to Richmond because when I was in Virginia, and I signed up for the 2-day course, and I got trained to be a trainer to teach people CPR and first aid. And I was like, bet, I don't need to pay anybody to do this. I can do this myself. So that's what I did. I moved on that and I started, teaching that. The first place was my son's daycare. It popped in my head, was like, ask them. And I wasn't afraid to be like, oh, who do I think I am? Yesterday I was this, and today I'm a CPR and first aid trainer. I was just making moves. Like, what? And then it was like, oh, I brought in somebody else so they can go and teach. They was certified too, and they can go and teach. And then I didn't have to be there, or I would be able to do two. Now I can do my own. I was just moving. I was just moving, and everything just started building from there. And then after my awakening, after the death of Gloria, after diving into healing, I learned so much about trauma, about energy, about money stories, about the nervous system and self sabotage and divine timing. And here's the truth: knowing all that knowledge slowed me down for a really long time. Because once you know, you can't unknow. And I started questioning everything, every decision, every desire, every next step. I went from doing to dissecting, from trusting my instincts to second guessing my intuition. And that's where I got, air quotes, stuck in the in between. Too aware to go back to ignorance, too uncertain to move forward in power. Everything was like, but is this my purpose? Is this in alignment? Should I do this? Well, what about them? People see me as this. I'm going to let other people down if I'm no longer doing this. And that's what I mean when I say factory settings. Because before I had all this awareness, I also have flow. I had grit. I had fire. I had that pure childlike trust that said, if God gave me the vision, I'm going to figure out the rest on the way. Because I used to always say, I'm the person who just jumps and grows her wings on the way down. Actually, I'm not even worried about the wings because I already know I'm good. I just happen to grow them on the way down. And now I'm learning to merge the two, the awakened me with the fearless me, because I ain't never been scared. So when I'm sitting in this space of like, so questioning everything so much that I don't even know what, I don't even do, not even, I don't even know what to do. I'm not doing nothing because I'm so afraid. I don't want to waste my time. Is this in alignment? Well, is this this? Is this that? And like I said, now I'm learning to merge the two, the awakened me with the fearless me, to reset the version of myself that knows both wisdom and that wild faith. And that's what starting again really is to me. It's not going backwards, it's integrating everything that you've learned, then moving forward lighter and doing this with divine clarity. So when God calls you to reset, he's not erasing your progress. He's upgrading your capacity. So I'm going to say that again. God isn't erasing your progress. He's upgrading your capacity. So let's be real. We all collect too much data. The heartbreaks, the disappointments, the I should have known betters. We store it like emotional, what is the thing we do? Screenshots. And then we wonder why life feels slow, it feels heavy, it feels foggy. It's because we're running on an outdated software. So when you reset back to factory settings, you are saying, God, delete the glitches, keep the lessons, restore the system. And I feel like that's grace, and that's grace in action. So here's something that I've noticed, that when we're in that middle space, that messy middle, the rebuild, the recalibration, we start making decisions from our current limitations instead of our future identity. We say, I can't do that yet. I don't have the money, or I can't launch that project. I don't have a team. I can't love again. I'm still healing. But those thoughts are written by the old software. The new version of you already has the resources, already has the strength, already knows how. You just haven't stepped into her timeline yet, or his timeline yet. So what if, instead of asking what can I do from where I am, you start asking, what would my future self already know to be true? Um, it's like, I don't know. Okay, so an example, and this is like a simple one. I'm like, oh, I have these different businesses and these different things, and oh, should I create an Instagram for it? And then I immediately was like, oh, I don't want to run that many pages. That's just too much. Well, I'm looking at it as I'm building this media company, and with different components, I'm building this by myself. Like, wait, so I'm looking right here, and it's like, wait a minute, no. If you feel like they each need their own thing, then that's what we're gonna do. You're gonna have a team. You know, you have virtual assistant now. You're gonna have more. They're gonna get more details, or whatever the case is. But that's like that quote unquote future version of me. But I'm looking at it from the current space, and I don't have the capacity to manage more than one page. I'm barely even managing that one in that space, right? So that's what I mean when I say that. But okay, so anyhow, when I was building my business years ago, I was pretty much operating from instinct and faith. I might not have called it that, but when I look back, I was like, yeah. Um, and now I'm starting to build with awareness and wisdom. And somewhere in between those two versions is, people call it balance. I always like to call it harmony. And that's the sacred start again, where you honor the old you who took risk, and the new you who understands divine alignment. And then you allow them to build together. So you don't need to choose between hustle and healing, between flow and focus. You are allowed to do both. You are allowed to be guided and grounded. So if you're listening right now and you feel like you're in that in between, too evolved to go back, too uncertain to move forward, I want you to take a breath. You are not stuck. Okay? You are not stuck. And God is reinstalling what's necessary and removing what's expired. So every delay, every doubt, every discomfort is not a punishment. I just like to look at it as like, it's a calibration. Yeah, let's go with that. Calibration. I like that. And don't be surprised if people also start to fall off, or you notice conversations you have with people, they are the same. It's not that they're not the same, they are the same, but that same doesn't sit well with you. It becomes very surface level, and it's the same conversations and stories, and it's just going in a loop and a loop and a loop. And if you start to feel like, well, I never felt like this before, I want you to honor that. It's nothing against the person at all. It's all about you and what you're starting to recognize. And if you are recognizing you're in a trauma loop, you're in environments that's just keeping you as the same version that you have been, but you're not happy with it, and you don't feel like you're living up to your god-given like potential. And as much as it may hurt or feel uncomfortable, you know the best thing is to allow it to happen, is to allow it to fade off, or whatever you want to call it. So, all right, so let's walk through your own reset. So this is where I want you to ask yourself, one, what's been running in the background that drains your spirit. Trust what is coming up. 2, what am I holding on to that God already asked me to release? I know you got. You know what? I ain't even gonna say nothing. Let me just let y'all hold that space. The third thing, what lessons do I want to keep? Like the good data, the gold. And 4, what new settings are you ready to install? Whether that's trust, is it abundance, is it peace, is it creativity? And you don't need to overthink this. I just want you to feel into it. So trust what's coming up, because that's what the factory settings are. Not blank space, but pure space. The version of you that existed before fear, before comparison, before you believed you had to earn love and worthiness. So now I want you to imagine pressing that small power button on your soul. The screen goes black. There's some silence. Then a little light flickers on. And there you are, restored, lighter, clearer, ready. And this is what it means to start again. Not because you failed, but because you've outgrown the old frequency. And you were never broken. You were just full, my friends, just full. Full of memories, expectations, noise. And now God is clearing the space so you can remember your original design. So today, if you feel the urge to start again, take it. That's grace tapping you on the shoulder. So you don't have to know the next step. You just really have to surrender to the reset. I like that. Surrender to it. Because your factory settings were never chaos. They were peace. They were clarity. They were power. And that's where you are returning to, my friend. Not to who you were, but to who you've always been. So, thank you. Thank you for sharing this space with me today. If this spoke to you, how about share it with someone who might be standing in their own in-between? And if you are ready to walk out your reset in real time, you can download my Reset and Rebuild mini guide. It'll help you start again, and this time starting from your center. Until next time, take a deep breath, trust God's process, and remember, every reset is sacred. Bye, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Rebuilding Me, the sacred art of starting again. If this episode spoke to your soul, be sure to subscribe, leave me a review, and most importantly, share it with someone who's on their own journey of remembering who they are. And just know, you're not alone, and you never have to start from scratch. You're starting again, but this time with wisdom. Until next time, stay open, stay grounded, and trust your rebuild. And if you need help navigating this journey, make sure to visit www.tishamichelleofficial.com and book a sacred reset session.